Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I hope you had a very refreshing break and a very nice tea. My name is Laura. I'm a creative strategist, a former UX UI designer.
And my name is Cyriele. I'm a UX designer and I'm a former developer.
I first want to thank you to Talk UX for inviting us. We're very excited to present you some of our latest findings in the world of user experience in specifically virtual reality. We work for a company called Unit 9, which is a production studio that does work from installations to websites to campaigns. And the latest area that Unit 9 has been focusing on is virtual reality. So in the past year or so, Cyriele and I have been able to be part of projects and teams that have been experiencing with different headsets and different technology. And we were able to find and gather some findings relating to questions that we've been questioning during the past year, and we would like to show those findings to you today. And switch.
So first question we have to ask is, what does virtual reality means today? What is virtual reality?
Virtual reality for most of us, and us, I mean users in the real world, not us standing here, geeks texting and hashtagging user experience on Twitter, is still something that seems out of a sci-fi movie, right? It's something that it's like entering a computer-generated three-dimensional environment where all our wishes can become fulfilled. Virtual reality is a screen that wraps around our heads, our field of view, and it's so immersive, so engaging, that it makes our brain believe that we're actually in a new reality.
Virtual reality allows you to experience sensations, new sensations that we could never experience in our daily lives otherwise, because I guess that we don't all have the opportunity to be a porn star. Or things like getting out of our body and seeing ourselves from the outside.
Yeah, so this experience is actually, it was conducted where people were placed within a porn movie, and they were in the person's point of view of the porn star actor, either the male or the female. So there's some quite a fun reactions over there where you see the guys going kind of, oh my God, because they have the other guy in front of them.
No safe for work.
Virtual reality is also about placing people in different places where they could never reach. So going and experiencing worlds and another place in this world that you can reach today, right now, at this moment. So once we answer what is virtual reality, we have to ask, what can we do with this new medium? What are the VR experiences that we can start providing the end user? And Cyriele and I, in the past year, were able to categorize these experiences in three main buckets. Being the first one, a hyper-immersive emotional type of experience, like the porn movie you just saw, where we engage users by influencing and controlling on their senses. For example, we have another project made by Unit 9, not a porn movie, but it's a multisensory virtual reality world where we basically place the user in a container, like a shipping container. We put some Oculus Rift on their head, we hang them on air, and people can literally move their hands and legs while flying, getting scented air blown onto their faces, and that scented air corresponds to the flavors of 5-Gum, which is a brand, and they can navigate within these crazy worlds like blue, pink, green, and yellow, while smelling the gum and feeling like they're in this imaginary virtual world. Another type of experience is a POV documentary live action. It's quite self-explanatory. So the idea is we take people on a journey to a place that they could never go right now. So Unit 9 has done this last year. We take users to British Columbia, Canada, and we put them on a boat while they're traveling on a lake, or they go on a forest hike. We actually have the experience in the back we brought the Samsung Gear VR, if anyone wants to try it later. And lastly, we have games. So games are actually the type of experience that hasn't been developed very much, and there's not a lot of examples out there yet. There's things like Blaze Rush, where people can drive cars from a third-person point of view. But nevertheless, games are our main audience, gamers, sorry. They were the first testers in the 90s. They were the first audience to perceive this technology, and they are the harsh and the most hard critics. Okay, so now we know what virtual reality is. We know what type of experiences we can provide the end user, but we still need to ask what type of VR tech do we have available in the market? Because that means that every headset has its different capabilities, its different ways of interacting, and it allows different types of immersion. For example, Oculus Rift is considered to be the most advanced headset in the market, so yay for McCann for bringing it. However, it requires a powerful machine to plug the headset onto, and it has a cable, so it doesn't allow for a lot of movement. And also, the image quality is not that good compared to what Samsung Gear is doing. Samsung has partnered with Oculus, and they have a headset where you put a Samsung Galaxy Note 4 attached to it, and that becomes the VR display. So you can freely walk around, you can turn, you don't have a cable around you. The only thing is that the phone's battery runs out in like half an hour. And then we have Google Cardboard. So for the DIY, do-it-yourself audience, this is something Google created where they provide a template and everyone can build this. It's made of cardboard. You just cut it and paste it together, and then you put your smartphone inside, and if you have an application that runs virtual reality videos, files, you can experience this at home with no problem. One thing we need to understand is that despite the technology of these headsets and being so innovative and being so advanced right now, there's still a lot of lack of feedback. So haptic feedback, and haptic is, feeling things on your skin and feeling it, it doesn't exist, because basically the headsets are placed in the user's head. So we can't feedback the user just with their head. We would need to allow for something else, another technology to do that. And there are things like sensorial gloves, things that you can wear in your hands. Unit 9 is actually developing something called Pretender project, where we put gloves on the user's body and we can control their movements, and they have like this weird spasm because we control the electricity in their muscles. So there are things that we can combine with the headsets, but they still live very much in the research level, in installation level, and they're not available for a mass consumer market. So one thing we get from all of this is that most experiencers are passive. They are sit-back type of experiencers where the user is there to observe. A lot of you today were experiencing the British Columbia film and asking us, so what do I do? And I said, well, you don't do anything, you just watch it. And that's the problem. It's not interactive, people are not engaged with it, they don't feel like they can control it. And according to Matthew Schneiper, an editor at Verge, only short visual spectacles work, like a visit to an Iceland or a concert to Paul McCartney. Which brings me to the fact that these experiences are very hard to monetize. The only way I can see it working is, for example, if we reinvent the way we experience cinema or music, where maybe in the future cinema theaters will be people wearing these things on their heads and everyone is experiencing the movie a different way.
So now we're going to talk about how to design for VR tools. Based on the 3 categories of experiences and the capabilities of the VR headsets, we have been able to collect some best practices based on our own experience and our researches. These findings are all about immersion and trying not to lose that immersion. As soon as it's broken, the user loses the impression of virtual reality. Some of these best practices come from the video game industry, some come from real life, which is also the starting point of any traditional UX design, and some had to be completely readapted. When it comes to video games, we have a lot to learn from first-person shooter game UI. It's what's closest to embody another character. Sound design is also really important for immersion, and it's taken really seriously in the game industry. For instance, Battlefield 3 sound design was created after the team spent some time in the middle of a military exercise. By doing this, they learned a lot about the real battle sound like, and therefore they were able to bring more realism to their work. They understood how much well-thought sound design can drastically improve the experience. The equivalent of Oculus Rift, but for the sense of hearing, is binaural sound. Binaural sound is a sort of 3D sound that tricks your brain as well by reproducing real-life sound, the fact that the sound bounces on walls, and hence it brings more realism. The following learnings are specific to a VR experience and are quite different from game design. Game UI, for instance, is usually displayed on a layer on top of the game, and it's called heads-up display, HUD. Doing this in VR would result in asking the user to consider a 3D environment with volume and depth, and on top of it, at the same time, try to focus on extra information displayed on this fixed layer. UI, menus, and extra information about specific objects, all of this has to be displayed at the same depth as the object they are targeting. The avatars, they also have to be considered differently, because in games, it still works if you don't see your arms and your body. But in VR, being able to see your body brings a lot more immersion into the experience, so it's really interesting to have. However, it can be deceptive or even disorienting if the body you've been assigned doesn't match your real body position, or your real body. Note that a third-person point of view is sometimes offered as an option in VR games because it removes motion sickness, but it's much less immersive. Controllers. VR prevents users from seeing what's happening in the real world, unlike augmented reality, because it entirely takes over the user's sight. Because of this, it's impossible for users to see any input device in their hands. And as soon as the user needs to remove his headset to see what he has in his hands, the experience is broken. Some other input devices have been developed and can be used to track users' movements, such as Kinect or lip motion, for instance, so that way you can see your arms moving in the Oculus Rift. If we only use the headset, users can control the experience by using raycast, which is basically selecting objects by looking at something on the interface. Or, for example, the Samsung Gear that we brought has a touchpad on the side, this side, and you can control the interface with it. The content, it has to be readapted because, for example, you can't really read 2D text in a 3D environment. So we can't have a whole paragraph of text displayed on screen. Secondly, we have to keep in mind that we can't restrict the user's view. The point of VR is to fake a new world in which the user is completely immersed. Being able to turn your head around is then part of the total immersion. And actually, it's pretty funny because many people who tried the Samsung Gear today, they didn't turn their head around. We had to tell them to do it because they're not used to it. As a result, the user experience has to be designed considering this freedom of movement. We need to take care of not to break either the immersion or the flow by designing a 360 experience. Finally, as we are here talking about a certain reality, we need to keep in mind some important facts that are true in real world. Animation, for example. It's what makes you believe that you are experiencing another reality. What tricks your brain is the immersion into an animated world, like in the real world. The quality of the animation then becomes fundamental. And when the immersion has to be broken, it's better to drive the user gently outside of this virtual world by using a fade to black before the tracking is lost. The latency is a big issue in VR. The world needs to move immediately and exactly at the same time as the user's head movement. If not, we cause simulator sickness. The experience you can see on the slide has been conducted by a Swedish team, in order to highlight issues related to latency. Not especially for VR, this was for an energy company, but this explains very well how latency can be disorienting. As you can see, he's not even able to play ping pong anymore. The movement is maybe the most important element to take into consideration whilst designing for VR, as it can provoke motion sickness. Motion sickness is caused by the feeling of not being in control of the motion. This has to be taken really seriously, considering the fact that it could prevent users from playing a game or running an experiment. Basically, the #1 rule is to ensure that user triggers any movement, no automatic zoom in or zoom out. And designers have to find other tricks to catch users' attention and make them focus on what's important. I'm sorry, I have this word always wrong. Last but not least, testing. It's even more than ever mandatory. Virtual reality is a new area, and we can't rely on assumptions. Also, as developers or people working in this industry, we are used to interfaces, controllers, and new technology. That makes us the worst test subject ever. So in this video, you can see two tech guys who were presenting an Oculus Rift experience. They asked the security guard to try the headset, and they wouldn't expect that the guy was so immersed into this virtual world that he fell over the chair. Yeah. So as you can see there are not a lot of concrete answers, and maybe more don'ts than do's. More things that we know don't work than a recipe that we know work for sure.
So the last question we have to ask is, what's next? Where are we heading? Where is this technology leading us? One thing we know for sure is that we want to take this into an interactive experience. We want to move from a passive observing mode into an interactive, proactive mode. And to do that, we need to allow for the user research to be always in line where the headset technology is heading. So technology and user experience research needs to be going hand in hand. One thing we can ask is, where are the headsets design heading? Are they going to be full immersive like Oculus Rift and Samsung Gear, covering our field of view all around? Or are they actually going to be what appears that Microsoft has launched this past month, called HoloLens, where they say the visor is transparent and the virtual world lays on top of the real world with some kind of opacity, and the user's brain chooses to focus in which virtuality or reality they want to focus on. So basically, they're layering this virtual world. It's like I was saying before, your room, for example, becomes a forest, but you're still able to see your couch underneath a tree. And that's quite surprising, and I'm curious to see how people are going to react to that. They say they're going to launch somewhere in July developers kit, so we're very curious to see what the developers have to say about it. So someone said this before this morning, this is a universal thing that I think we all agree. Creative UX and tech need to be working hand in hand alongside. A creative cannot make up a 360 experience where the user will feel so sick or so immersed that will fall down the chair. Technology needs to be putting the user in the center and considering things like latency, dizziness, motion sickness, not being able to control the movement, and allow for that during the for the next headsets to come. And then finally, user experience needs to consider that we are doing a new creative world. This is a new medium. This is a new challenge. And what type of experience do we want to provide? Are they gamified? Are they emotional, like the porn one? Are they educational? Are they passive, active? What tools do we have? There's a lot of questions to ask right now. And like Cyriele said, there's a lot of don'ts and not do's. One thing we were able to conclude is that, people are still the same, humans are still the same. if you don't guide them, if you don't provide the necessary help, people will get lost no matter what. So you can't drop someone in a virtual reality world and expect them to do what you expect them to do. You need to guide them. So people trying today the Samsung Gear, they put the Samsung on, the headset on, and they didn't know what to do. I had to tell them, look around, you know, you can look up, you can look down, you can look left, turn around, you can do all these sorts of things. And we need to guide users. It's not just because it's so immersive that people will understand what to do. So like I said, there needs to be a slow and progressive familiarization when people are first introduced to these experiences. We need visual clues and sound clues, maybe the visual combined with sound or the sound replace the visual, but we need guidance and help at all times.
Recapping VR means to willingly take a user far from reality and get them to experience things they otherwise wouldn't. We need a huge level of immersion to accomplish this. But as explained, current controllers are not mature enough to make these VR experiences easily accessible for casual customers. The results are that users can't really control what's happening around, to become kind of stuck in a passive and contemplative state. However, this is only the beginning and it's evolving fast. We have learned 2 days ago that Valve announced the forthcoming release of a new device called the Vive. They presented it as an active experience within which people will be able to walk around and explore a space of 15 feet by 15 feet. I'm really looking forward to trying this one. The good news is that today we have all the necessary technology available to measure human behavior and data like heartbeat, gaze, head movement, hand perspiration, geolocation, height, and even cerebral activity. So we need to start thinking of ways to create a machine that will learn from our body and create a unique experience for each user based on their personal input. With all these inputs, we can bring even more realism. To conclude, virtual reality has introduced new UX challenges and raised questions, especially regarding interactions. How can we quickly design interactions with an object in a virtual world that could fake an interaction with an object in the real world? More generally, how do we quickly prototype a 3D environment? What's the best tool that allows UX designers to design the entire flow of interaction involving 360 point of view in a 3D environment? The possible interactions in VR are much broader than usual, which creates plenty of new situations that need to be sorted out. And what a better time to be a user experience designer than this. We now have the amazing opportunity to identify the grammar that makes users feel physically uncomfortable or not. Terms like nauseous, lost, dizzy, unbalanced, focused, gazing, on track, and so on will become part of the UX dictionary. We brought with us a Samsung Gear, so please feel free to come stop by and try it on. Your feedback might feature in the amazing brand new UX dictionary.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.